Welcome back, my beautiful friends. Last week, we looked at P.J. Patterson, the master strategist who held power longer than anyone in Jamaica's history up to now. But when Patterson stepped off the stage in 2006, the People's National Party didn't just pass the baton to another establishment insider in a sharp suit. They handed the nation over to a force of nature. Portia Lucretia Simpson-Miller, Sista P, Mama P, the most magnetic, fiercest, and deeply adored political figure that Jamaica has ever seen up to now. To her supporters, the working class mothers, the street vendors, the youth of Southwest St. Andrew, and the disenfranchised across the island, she was not merely a politician, she was a protector of the poor, an unstoppable mother figure who spoke their language and carried their pain on her shoulders. To her critics and political adversaries, she was an untamed populist who challenged the traditional, deeply entrenched elitism of Jamaican leadership. Love her or not, you could never ignore Portia. Welcome back to In the Shadow of the Chief, a 9-part series looking at Jamaica's 9 prime ministers, their achievements, triumphs, and flaws. Today, we go deep into the story of Jamaica's first female prime minister, from her humble beginnings in Woodhall, St. Catherine, to her recruitment by Michael Manley, her legal and political battles, her iconic relationship with Andrew Holness, the historic visit of Barack Obama, the controversial gaffes, the painful party revolt that pushed her out, and finally, the heartbreaking twilight of her life when her husband, Harold Miller, confirmed the diagnosis that took her out of the public sphere. Portia wasn't born into political royalty. She didn't come from the light-skinned upper-crust families that historically populated the halls of Gordon House. She was born in 1945 in rural St. Catherine, attending Marley Hill Primary and St. Martin's High School before moving to Kingston. She got involved in local government in the early 1970s, serving as a councillor in the Kingston and St. Andrew Corporation, KSAC, as it was known then. That was where her extraordinary ability to connect with the ordinary people caught the eye of a legendary figure, Prime Minister Michael Manley. Manley realized something crucial. His cabinet was full of intellectuals, lawyers, and academics from the University of the West Indies. He needed authentic, battle-tested leaders who could feel the pulse of the inner city. In Portia, Manley saw raw, uncut political gold. She was fearless, fiercely loyal to the PNP, and had an uncanny instinct for grassroots organization. In 1976, Manley deployed her to contest the volatile, fiercely contested constituency of Southwest St. Andrew. She won. And for the next 4 decades, Southwest St. Andrew wasn't just a political seat, it became her kingdom. Throughout the bloody political tribalism of the late 1970s and 1980s, Portia stood like an iron pillar in the ghetto. When the PNP boycotted the 1983 general election and sat in the political wilderness, Portia remained on the ground, attending every funeral, visiting every burnt-out house, and wrapping her arms around grieving mothers. This was where the Mama P persona was forged, in fire. When the PNP returned to power under Manley in 1989, Portia was named Minister of Labour, Welfare and Sports, a huge ministry. It was a natural fit. While technocrats argued over macroeconomic indicators and debt servicing, Portia focused on human welfare. She championed employment rights, expanded social safety nets, revamped the National Insurance Scheme, NIS, and fiercely defended worker safety. When Manley stepped down in 1992, Portia made her first bid for the party leadership. She ran against P.J. Patterson. The contrast couldn't have been sharper. Patterson represented the cool, structured, institutional establishment. Portia represented the populist heart and soul of the party's mass base. Patterson won the delegate vote, but the public loved Portia. Instead of walking away, Portia fell in line. She served in Patterson's cabinet for over a decade as Minister of Labour, Minister of Tourism, and Minister of Local Government and Community Development. Everywhere she went, her personal brand eclipsed almost every other minister. She was accessible, emotionally visceral, and possessed an unmatched ability to ignite a crowd with her signature rally cry, "I love you." In 2006, P.J. Patterson announced his retirement. The crown was up for grabs, and the PNP internal battle line was drawn. It was one of the most brutal, high-stakes political leadership contests that ever took place in the Caribbean. When Portia Simpson-Miller threw her hat into the ring, standing against her were heavyweights: Dr. Peter Phillips, the cool-headed security minister; Dr. Omar Davies, the long-serving finance minister; and Carl Blythe, the medical doctor from Central Westmoreland. The establishment aligned heavily against Portia. Elements of the media, the business sector, and party intellects questioned whether she had the academic credentials and diplomatic poise to lead a nation through complex global economic challenges. They labeled her a populist, doubting her grasp of high finance. Portia turned those exact criticisms into her ultimate weapon. She framed the race as a battle between the entrenched elites and the common people. On February 25, 2006, in a nail-biting delegate vote at the National Arena, Portia Simpson-Miller made history. She prevailed over Peter Phillips and was elected president of the PNP. On March 30, 2006, she was sworn in as Jamaica's first female prime minister. Her first stint in office was a trial by fire. Almost immediately, her administration was hit by the devastating Trafigura Behir scandal in late 2006. Opposition leader Bruce Golding dropped a bombshell in Parliament, revealing that Dutch oil trading firm Trafigura Behir had transferred 31 million Jamaican dollars into a PNP-linked bank account just before the party's annual conference. The scandal rocked the nation. What followed was a decade-long battle between the Dutch authorities, when they sought to question PNP officials, local courts, and eventually the UK Privy Council, who ruled that Portia Simpson-Miller and other party executives had to testify under oath in open court about the donation. Portia's legal team fought the ruling bitterly for years to protect the party, a cloud that hung over her political career until she was eventually excused years later on medical grounds. In September 2007, amidst the Trafigura backlash and criticism over Hurricane Dean's relief efforts, Portia lost a rather thin general election to Bruce Golding's JLP, 32 to 38 seats. She was out of Jamaica House after just 18 months. Immediately, the knives came out. In 2008, Dr. Peter Phillips launched a direct challenge to remove her as PNP president. It was total civil war within the party. But Portia once again went straight back to her grassroots base, mobilized the delegates, and crushed Peter Phillips' challenge with over 70% of the vote. She proved that while the party's intellects might doubt her, the rank and file belonged to her completely. One of the most fascinating dynamics in modern Jamaican politics was her relationship with JLP leader Andrew Holness. On stage, their political battles were fierce, but off stage, they shared a genuine, strikingly affectionate personal rapport. Portia famously referred to Holness as "my son," publicly hugging him and showering him with motherly affection at national events. Even when campaign trail rhetoric grew toxic, the warmth between them caught the nation's attention. Though during heated elections, Portia wouldn't hesitate to bark back, famously declaring in 2016 that Andrew is no longer my son, when political survival was on the line. When Bruce Golding resigned in late 2011 following the Dudusco crisis, Holness took over as Prime Minister and called an election for December 29, 2011. Holness bet on his youth. Portia countered with raw populist connection. The PNP annihilated the JLP in a 42 to 21 seat landslide. Portia returned to power in triumph. Her second administration oversaw major historic shifts. Decriminalization of ganja. Her government passed historic reforms, amending the Dangerous Drugs Act, decriminalizing small amounts of marijuana for personal, religious, and medical use, a massive victory for the Rastafarian community, and economic reform. She produced infrastructure expansion. Her administration pushed forward the Major Infrastructure Development Program, MIDP, and the expansion of the North-South Highway connecting Kingston to Port Reyes, transforming Jamaican transit. The IMF economic reform. In a supreme paradox, the woman accused of being an economic illiterate presided over one of the most disciplined IMF structural adjustment programs in Jamaica, appointing her former rival, Dr. Peter Phillips, as finance minister. Her government passed strict fiscal responsibility laws, executed the National Debt Exchange, NDX, brought down inflation and turned Jamaica's economic trajectory around. She used her immense street credibility to keep trade unions and workers quiet while the government endured severe economic austerity. Yet her second term was plagued by controversial off-the-cuff statements that ignited public firestorms. In late 2012, the National Housing Trust, NHT, a public body funded by statutory worker contributions intended to build affordable housing, purchased the failing 9-acre Outameni Experience tourist attraction in Trelawney for 180 million Jamaican dollars. public outrage erupted over using housing trust funds to bail out a private commercial venture. Simpson-Miller was heavily criticized for her initial silence, refusing to fire the Easton Douglas-led NHT board and claiming in Parliament that she only learned of the completed transaction through media reports. This despite holding direct portfolio oversight as Prime Minister. When a toxic subterranean fire at the Riverton City dump choked Kingston in a suffocating haze of smoke for weeks in 2015, causing health crisis across the capital, citizens demand the dismissal of Jennifer Edwards, the then executive director of National Solid Waste Management Authorities. Portia bluntly shut down reporters, firing off her now famous defense. She did not set the fire. If she had set the fire, she would be gone.
Well, I'm sure she wouldn't set the fire. If she had set the fire, she would be gone.
Her unfiltered style constantly divided opinion. When criticized about her extensive foreign travel budget, she defiantly declared to the press, "I work hard, and when I travel, I don't go for fashion shows." In April 2015, Portia scored a monumental diplomatic coup. She welcomed US President Barack Obama to Jamaica, the first sitting American president to visit the island since Ronald Reagan in 1982, when he was invited by Siaga. The images of Portia walking side by side with Obama at Bob Marley Museum and hosting him at Jamaica House dominated international news headlines. The PNP believed this presidential aura made Portia invincible heading into the next election. They could not be more wrong. Riding on high international praise for IMF compliance, the PNP grew overconfident when election day was set for April 25, 2016. Portia made the fatal tactical error of refusing to participate in the national political debate against Andrew Holness. Holness ran a slick, youth-driven campaign focused on economic relief, promising the $1.5 million tax-free threshold and shifting the focus from austerity to growth. On election night, February 25, 2016, Jamaica witnessed the tightest election result in our history. The JLP defeated the PNP, winning 33 seats to the PNP 30. Obama's visit, the IMF approval, and 40 years of personal charisma could not stop the political tide. Portia Simpson-Miller had lost Jamaica House to Andrew Holness. The 2016 defeat was a devastating blow from which the party could not recover internally. A bitter revolt erupted behind closed doors. Young party reformers and the old establishment aligned to send a blunt message. Portia's era was over. They argued that her failure to debate Holness lost them the election, that her media management was outdated, and that the party needed a total reset. The pressure was relentless. Portia, who had fought off every political predator for 40 years, realized the ground had shifted under her feet. She was effectively pushed out of the party leadership. In early 2017, she officially announced her resignation as PNP president and stepped down from Parliament, handing the reins to Dr. Peter Phillips. It was an agonizing, quiet end for a woman who had given her entire life to the political stage. After her exit, Portia faded almost completely from the public eye. Speculation swirled until the heartbreaking truth was revealed. Her devoted husband, Errol Miller, who had stood silently behind her through every storm, publicly confirmed that Mama P, Portia, was suffering from advanced dementia, Alzheimer's disease. The news sent shockwaves of sadness across Jamaica. Political allies and former fierce rivals set aside their colors to honor her. The warrior woman, whose voice could rattle an arena of 50,000, who rose from rural St. Catherine to break the ultimate ceiling, was now fighting a quiet personal battle in the shadow of silence. Portia Simpson-Miller remains a singular force in Jamaican history, flawed, fierce, and fiercely debated, yet forever tied to the hearts of the millions who knew her simply as Mama P. As her chapter in the nation's story closes, history honors the indelible mark she left on the political landscape and her well-earned place in her quiet years. Next week, we turn the page to one of the most complex, cerebral, and explosive chapters in West Kingston history, the story of Jamaica's 7th Prime Minister, Bruce Golding, a political prodigy who broke away from the JLP to form the NDM, only to return and lead the JLP back into power after nearly 2 decades in the wilderness. But Golding's premiership would be defined by an extraordinary international showdown. The U.S. extradition request for Tivoli Gardens chieftain Christopher Dudis Coke. The infamous Manat Phelps and Phillips lobbying scandal and the deadly military assault on Tivoli that shook the nation to its core and ultimately brought down Golding's government. You won't want to miss next week's episode. Throughout the series, we will uncover the untold historical narratives of all of Jamaica's prime ministers, examining both their crowning achievements and their profound flaws. Our journey will ultimately culminate with the chief himself, Sir Alexander Bustamante, Jamaica's first Prime Minister and the foundational architect of the nation. Until next time, remember, out of many, one people under God. Jamaica, land we love. See you next time.
Here we come.
One people, one nation.
Standing tall.
Under God.
Strong and free.
Jamaica.